I won't, thank you for having me. I won't waste time. So the title of my topic is Stifling Philippine Growth, the Cost of the Pandemic. So I'll just go through it. The key ideas that I have is that the Pope in his encyclicals gives a very huge importance with regards to climate change and the environment. Secondly, those who are affected in the climate change are normally the marginalized individuals of society or groups. So right now, on the third key idea, there is an opportunity for public and private entities in order to cooperate together and get their own personal interests out of it through disaster risk investments and finance. So just to give you an idea, with regards to the Philippines, it's in terms of its economy, it's doing very well since 2011. But because of the calamities, because of COVID, then we have to start from scratch again because of that. So basically what we need is a mechanism in order to address specific problems when it comes to disaster, relief efforts, recovery, as well as reconstruction. Now, just to give an idea, since 2012, everything is put in place. Our president right now is not voted because of his economic skills, but rather he was voted because of a very popular in a platform of anti-crime and anti-drugs. So he just basically left the economic part to his predecessors who are actually doing a great job. Now, it's a continuity of these programs. Now, we have a couple of pillars in terms of our economy. One is the remittances that we get from abroad. We're number 4, right next to China, Mexico, and India in terms of the billions of dollars we're putting in the country. 10% of our population is out of the country. We have a BPO industry or BPO business processing or outsourcing industry, which is about 40 to 55 billion pesos, dollars in terms of revenue. And we have a build infrastructure program that will be like our flagship project in terms of generating revenue and foreign direct investment. Unfortunately, the beginning of 2019 is an ominous sign for Philippine economy. We have been hit by any type of calamity you can think of, earthquakes, typhoons, eruptions. We actually have 20 on average typhoons hitting the Philippines, an average of 20 every year. And we're not really an exporting country, but there's a joke that, that's what we export to our northern neighbors in Japan and Taiwan and in Korea, our typhoons. And aside from that, we, at the start of January of 2020, we had the volcanic eruption. Taal Volcano is considered a destination of a tourist destination. And although it's active, no one ever expected for it to explode. And you can see here, I won't go through it, but the losses are huge. And the relocation of the families and the handling of those who were affected are very, very much considerable. It affected almost a couple of regions. Now, finally, the most impact is on COVID. Now, COVID, we started getting hit on January. We had the lockdown on March 15. And Dennis, I also want you to know that until now, we're still on lockdown in the Philippines. We have many different kinds of lockdowns or quarantines, but we're still in quarantine right now. I also want you to understand that our Build flagship project is based on overseas development assistance and our tax reform. However, COVID changed all of that. Now the government is doing everything in order to address that by lowering the rates or the reserves. We had extra emergency powers granted to our president, fundings. So just to put disaster risk and finance into perspective, in terms of global problems with regards to natural calamities, for the United States alone, they're 51% covered by insurance. Asia, including the Philippines and other Asian countries, only accounts for 12%. So if you can see here, in order to make a good disaster risk and finance insurance mechanism, you need to consider the following layers. Address each and every stage of the disaster: relief, recovery, and reconstruction. We do have, I'm down to my last 2 slides. We're doing a final, the Philippines has indeed initiated in 2015 its very own disaster risk finance and insurance mechanism. So we have fundings on the national and local levels. We're trying to establishing a contingent credit line or parametric insurance. This just basically means that the World Bank, the Department of Finance are working hand in hand with other insurance companies in order to ensure that whenever a calamity happens, there's instant cash for the marginalized sector. GSI fundings, budget allocations, realignments in terms of our national budget. We also have a catastrophe deferred drawdown option. Basically, it's a standby $500 million. And of course, ODA. I won't discuss too much in detail because of time considerations, but here is a general understanding on how a proper disaster risk finance and insurance mechanism should be created. So it's from low severity to high severity, from frequency, more frequent to less frequent. And of course, we have to consider the budget. Now here in my last slide, some of the challenges and opportunities with regards to the Philippines being situated in the ring of fire, they really have to consider trying to institutionalize DRFI disaster mechanisms. First, make it an ex-post disaster relief, meaning the funds should be not only after the problem occurred, but beforehand should be set up. There should be funding because right now it's all flexible. Sometimes our disaster fund could be 8 billion now, for example, but next year it's going to be half of that. So there's no continuity. There should be an expanse of DRFI instruments to improve efficiency, institutionalization of the whole system. Okay, it should really be adopted by the government. And finally, there should be a separation of the pillars. So it should be clear when is it risk reduction, identify when is it risk reduction or mitigation, and when is it reconstruction. We have a situation with regards to the Typhoon Yolanda, which has killed about 6,000 Filipinos. And that's 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. And reconstruction efforts are still ongoing. So there are some of the gaps. Now, before I part, I just want to share this very special insurance coverage by the Wimbledon. We all know about Wimbledon, and everyone was laughing because they got an insurance for a pandemic. But they're cashing in right now because they have considered a pandemic taking place or occurring and affecting the income from Wimbledon. I think they're having a payout of about 100 million pounds in terms of this. And finally, my last statement is climate change should be seen as an opportunity to bring out the best in our humanity. First of all, it adheres to the Pope's encyclical when it comes to the environment. Number two, an opportunity to assist the marginalized because they're the ones who's affected by these natural calamities, and we can assist them through insurance and risk transfer mechanisms. And finally, the government will continue its economic programs if they are insulated from all of these problems. And finally, for the insurance companies, they could get a profit, and at the same time, they'll be, of course, contributing to nation building of the Philippines. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you very much for this opportunity.